Today we're talking about a wine region you might not have thought of.
Welcome to Vacation Mavens, the podcast that brings you travel inspiration and practical tips from two moms who know how to plan the perfect trip.
I'm Tamara from Your Time to Fly.
And I'm Kim from Stuffed Suitcase. With over 40 years of travel experience between us, we're here to share our favorite destinations from road trips to cruising, theme parks, and European adventures.
Whether you're planning a family vacation or a mom getaway, we have the tips and tricks to make memories that will last a lifetime.
Tamara, we talked to you a couple weeks ago about the Atacama Desert region of Chile that you headed to on a little couples getaway you had with Glenn. So we already talked about you flew into Santiago, you went a little bit further north to the desert, the Atacama Desert, and then now we're going to start talking about wine tasting and a little bit of food because I think most people, loyal listeners, will know that Glenn is which level? He's 3.
Level 3, WSET level 3,
Yeah. I'm like, how do you really say the letters WSET?
I don't know what else to say because it would be sommelier, and that's a different track.
That's a different level, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so he is a wine aficionado and educated about it. So we are going to chat a little bit about that. And I know that you and I have had some great experiences like in Portugal doing wine tasting, and you've done a lot of wine tasting in Italy. And I'm sure there's probably other ones I'm blanking about right now, but this will be kind of fun time to talk about a destination that I think a lot of people, I bought Chilean wine. And so I know a little bit like, oh yeah, they do make wine there, but definitely not an obvious wine trip that people think about. So why don't you kick us off? So you're up in the Atacama Desert. How did you get to, where is the wine region? How did you get there?
Yeah, the wine region there's a couple of different wine regions, but they're south of Santiago or west of Santiago. So we had to fly back to Santiago, and then we picked up a car. And we drove ourselves for the rest of the trip. And driving,
how was that?
It was pretty easy. Yeah, highways, everything, no problems at all. The only problem was one time we were driving like a few hours, and there ended up being not really a few hours, maybe 2 hours, but then it ended up being a lot of traffic, and so it kept getting like longer, and I really had to pee. And I was like, what am I going to do? And Glenn was just like, he doesn't care. He'll just be like, oh, I'll go ask this person. And I'm like, no, because so many of the places along the side of the road are just like their little carts or their little even if they're a little store, like it's not like your rest areas. There were some of those on the major highway, but on the other roads. So anyway, we're driving and I'm like going to burst. And we couldn't even find like a bush.
I was just going to say the green latrine. No?
Yeah. And so they call it the Inca toilet there.
Okay.
In Peru. And when we were in the Atacama Desert, they were like, oh, you need the Inca toilet. So anyway, we finally saw a sign for Baño Limpia. And we're like, clean bathroom. And I'm like, I'll pay whatever. So I basically run into this little cafe and I'm like throwing like 1,000 peso at the guy. Like, baño. And it was so nice because it was very clean and very nice. And the guy was super sweet. And yes, that was the only issue that I had.
That would be traumatizing for me.
The one time that we did get gas, it was, first of all, it was not self-serve. So the guys had like uniforms and they washed the windshield. It was like the old time gas.
Full service. Yep.
But then we couldn't quite figure out like what he was talking. Like whatever the guy was trying to communicate, Glenn even had him try to say it into the phone for Google Translate, and that wasn't working. Eventually, we just handed him the credit card, and it worked out.
Did you ever look at what the charge was afterwards?
Yeah, luckily, we did not need gas more than once. It was the only time that I've prepaid the gas when I rented a car.
Oh, interesting.
I was like, you know what? I don't want to deal with it when we come back, like finding a place and all that stress.
You just bought the full tank.
Yeah, so you just kind of bring it back empty and and whatever. It's more expensive, but it was less stress.
Yeah.
So driving was fine. So we drove about 2 hours south to the Colchagua. I feel like I never quite say it, but it's Colchagua, Colchagua region. And that is known for its reds. And I think a lot of Chilean wine, and Glenn, we probably should have had him on this episode. But then he would go on and on about this region and that region. But they're known for their reds. They're known for Malbec.
That's what I know Chile for.
Yeah, like Bordeaux blends, Cabernet Sauvignon. And then there's a grape that you mostly find there that I hadn't had before called Carmenere. I also always I want to make it more French sounding.
French, yeah.
But it is also a red, which we ended up buying some of, and so I think anyone that's a red wine lover would love this
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the more popular areas. We also later in the trip visited the Casablanca region, which is more to the west of Santiago, closer to the coast between these and the coastal range, and so
Mm-hmm.
you like this microclimate, like it's foggier, it's cooler because you're getting also this is Glenn's information coming to you, but there's the Humboldt current that comes up from Antarctica
Oh,
that makes
okay.
the water off the coast of Chile super cold, so like for swimming, but it also brings like the cold breeze. So
Yeah.
it's good for white wines in that region. So the Casablanca region is more like Sauvignon Blanc and some Chardonnay. So,
Interesting. I had no idea. I've never thought of whites from Chile, so that's
right,
cool to
right.
know. Was the Chardonnay oaked like a California Chard, or was it
I'm
more a European Chard
more
sealed?
European, but
Nice.
it depended on
Yeah.
who's
On
doing
the
it and how they're
winemaker.
doing
Yep.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Great. Cool. So you guys got to where you stayed. So what's the first, did you stay in one hotel while you guys were in or guess two, because you were in two different wine
Yeah, so we
regions.
did two. We
Yeah.
did 3 nights in each, and this was the part you guys may remember that I talked about where Avianca had canceled our flight to return, and so we ended up extending our stay, and that's why we did the Casablanca region. So we ended up doing
Okay.
3 nights there as well, because
Sweet.
our original plan was like one night right by the Santiago airport, and we were going to fly out the next morning, but then the flight had been
Yeah.
moved to afternoon, so we were like, okay, we can just
It
go a
turned
little
out to work out
closer.
better.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
all worked out. And so the first place we stayed is called Vibo Wine Lodge, and it's on the property of the Viu Manent Winery. And I loved this place. Like Glenn and
I
I
think this is
loved
what you
it
shared.
so much. It
Yeah.
was like, so when we were looking around for places to stay, one of the more popular places, especially for Americans, is called Clos Apalta, and it is a Relais Chateaux property. It is a beautiful, like luxury property, amazing, but it was a little above our price range. And so I was looking around at different options, and I just happened to come across, honestly, I think because they didn't have a lot of marketing at the time, I think I was just like searching around on Google Maps, and I'm like, what's this place? But it's
No,
basically
that's
like
cool.
kind of like little tiny homes, like scattered throughout the vineyards.
Right.
So they call
Yes.
them lofts, and just staying like literally in the vineyard like that. It was, and all of the decor was just like, I just loved it. I loved the whole aesthetic of it. It was very laid back. We talk about vibes a lot, but the vibe there was just perfect. It was just
Yeah.
so, like I said, very relaxed, but great service. They would like WhatsApp me all the time. What time do you want to have housekeeping? What time do you want to have breakfast? Things like
I was just
that.
gonna say, was it all inclusive?
No, it
Oh,
wasn't.
okay.
It included breakfast, but because it's on the property of this winery, that winery has one restaurant which
Oh, that's
has
what I was curious. Okay.
some, like they're open certain days for lunch and other days, like maybe one day for dinner. Then they have this wine and food studio, which is run by Chef Pilar Rodriguez, and she's apparently like an ambassador of food for Chile. So it's done, that is like a tasting menu, very small place, like maybe 6 tables, and it's just a set tasting menu. It's a great food and wine experience. And then they also have a coffee shop, and that's where they do breakfast. And so one day we decided our first day, we're just going to stay on the property and just relax. There's also stables on property. So I set up horseback riding. So we got up, we had breakfast, we went for a horseback ride, and then we went and we had this wonderful lunch just overlooking the vineyards. Weather was perfect. It was delicious.
Nice.
Everything was super nice. And then I forget, we did a wine tasting that afternoon.
Okay.
And they have we did like a private wine tasting, which included like a carriage ride also through the vineyards and then over to their barrel room and such and tasting. So we spent the whole day like on property, but then we didn't really need more food or wine. And so
I was just gonna say, what do you do for dinner then?
yeah,
if
so
you-
we ended
yeah.
up just the coffee shop has like charcuterie boards or
Right.
sandwiches. So we just
Oh,
got like a
nice.
picnic
Yeah.
to have that in
Had
our
some
loft.
wine and yep.
And the place is also only like 10 minutes from the town of Santa Cruz, which is a fairly
Okay.
big town in that
Oh,
area.
nice.
And so we went to dinner there the first night
Okay.
at a place called Casa called.
And did you drive
and
yourself? or
We
did they
drove
have a shuttle?
ourselves,
Okay.
and it was like I said, about 10 minutes in that restaurant. was very nice. It was like family run, it was a really historic home looking type of, and more traditional Chilean cuisine. And it was delicious.
What is
Everything was great.
Chilean cuisine
Yeah, it's
like?
still, there's empanadas, there's like a
Okay.
lot of meat, there's still a lot of fish too. It's hard to
Oh.
describe. Like it's not it, and I will say we didn't really talk about this in the last episode, but one thing that I found with the parts of Chile that I visited was that it doesn't have as strong of a cultural identity. Feels very, obviously it was colonized,
Yeah.
and but also so many other Europeans came. So like Santiago felt like a very European type of city. And I've heard that as you move further south, that there's more of the indigenous people and it's a bit stronger culture. But I feel like even when it comes to the cuisine, there's like Peruvian influences and like, so it's a little bit of a mix. Like I found it to be a little bit of a melting pot, which I've always liked that kind of concept. So it was good. But I will say, like, you guys might remember when I talked about Peru, how I still am so just like amazed by what a great cultural trip that was and how much I appreciated getting to experience that. So you're not going to get quite that same feeling in Chile.
That's a great insight. I think that's really important to know because it's hard to always go, oh, like some countries might not have a really strong cultural representation or identity that comes across for people visiting. So when you're a melting pot and when you've been colonized, sometimes that can happen.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Okay, so you had dinner in the town one night. Anything else? What sort of things? This gorgeous hotel. If you guys have not followed, you should be following us both on Instagram. But Tamara definitely shared about this pretty view because one of the things I had to chuckle about was your loft came with something unique out on your balcony that maybe Glenn didn't really care about, but you did.
I just thought it was such a cool feature. But yeah, so picture like a tiny home or like this trailer.
Yeah, it's like a really sexy trailer.
Yeah, it's sexy. Yeah. I like that. Yeah, because I'm like, when I say trailer, that's not going to come across well. But there's also a whole wall of windows, which they have curtains and automatic shades that you can have go down or whatever. But when you open up this back porch, you have a seating area, but then you have a tub. And there's a beautiful bathroom inside with a really nice shower and all of that. But if you want to take a bath just overlooking the vineyards with a glass of wine in your hand, it's beautiful.
I have a friend who would be all over that. And meanwhile, I'd be like, can anybody see me? What if there's somebody in that vineyard
there's
like down
no way
there?
I'm doing it naked. No, sorry, that's not happening.
Yeah,
I'm a bit prudish when it comes to that anyway.
I would like to just embrace it and say,
no,
let's
I'd be
just go
treating
for
it like a jacuzzi.
Yeah,
like no, I'm going in with my bathing suit.
Your swimsuit, yeah.
Because when we were actually walking through the vineyards to go over to check out the pool, because there's also a beautiful pool there that has like in the water loungers and these sunbeds. It was gorgeous. So I'm walking past another loft and I can completely see their back porch. So like definitely.
For sure then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I feel like sometimes they try and make it like there's no other people that can see there. There's got to be workers in that vineyard at some point.
Yeah. So no one could see you unless they're walking by, like the way they're positioned. It's not like they're going to be on their porch and see you.
Yeah.
And we were at least like the last one down the line. So like no one would really be walking by. But the ones that are on the path to the pool, no.
Yeah. Okay, good to know. Sorry. Anyways, side discussion there. Okay, so you guys, any other cool things about this property that you guys did? And then so you had 3 nights there. What sort of stuff did you do in the region other than the dinner in the town?
Yeah, so the first day was like travel day, get there, we had dinner in town, and then the next day was just all on the property. And I will say that also, if we really wished we had at least one more day there. They have bikes that you can borrow, so you could bike either through the vineyards or just through the roads nearby. It's just really beautiful and relaxing. There's also some stray dogs around, so you probably saw that on my Instagram stories too. But one of them adopted us. The first night we're walking back and we're walking up this kind of dark path. There's like some lighting, but towards our loft, and Glenn's like going to open the door, and I look back and I see this animal, but it's in shadow, so I can't tell. I'm like
what
I
it
think
is?
this is a dog, but could this be something
like
else?
A mountain lion?
I don't know, but it's like kind of trotting towards us, and I'm like, oh, there's and I couldn't get the word out, and Glenn's what? And all of a sudden the dog runs up. So it was like a collie, and it ended up we could barely get into our loft. Like it was blocking the way. And then we got in and it curled up on our mat. And I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go to the bathroom and I heard it out there. So it
Oh my
slept
gosh.
outside of our door like the whole night.
Oh, wow.
And then whenever we were walking somewhere, it would come find us and it would lay outside of our place a couple times. And so the one day that we had lunch on property, I had ordered steak and it was more than I could eat. And so here I am like cutting up little pieces and putting it into a napkin. Glenn is like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I want to feed the dog." And
Did you ask the hotel if they knew
Well,
about the dog, or
yes,
is it a hotel dog?
apparently like different strays come around and the kitchen feeds them or people at the hotel feed them. So it's like I wasn't, and I didn't do it at the restaurant. Like I waited.
No, yeah. Good job.
Basically,
Good job.
I was like walking and then the dog was like getting belly rubs from this other guy. And I'm like, "Oh, it's abandoned us." But then I walk by it and it comes over and I have this napkin full of meat. Oh, it's like sniffing and then all of a sudden it's like trying to like bite through the napkin. And
Oh,
I'm like, "Come
no.
over here." And I opened it up and by the time I could even like fully open the napkin, it
It
was like
was
it
gone.
inhaled everything. So yeah, I
Oh,
don't think
man.
it's unusual, but it was so cute. But anyway, you could spend time there. But what we did on our other full day in that region is we took a wine tour. And so the way that I used a company called, I think just Colchagua Wine Tours, is that they help you arrange all of the tastings, but you either prepay or you pay on site for the tasting. And you're basically just paying for the transportation. And I was amazed. So we've done wine tours in France and in Greece and in Italy. And like usually it's pretty pricey. Granted, like here, like I said, we were paying for the tasting separately, but it was only $125 to have a driver for the full day.
Wow. How
Right?
many wineries did he take you to? 3?
We
Four?
went to 3. I'm like, "Can I even count?"
Oh,
And one of them we had lunch at, and Glenn was super
Okay.
excited about that lunch because it is by a chef called Francis Malman, who apparently is Argentinian, and people like travel for 3 hours into the middle of nowhere to go to his restaurant. And I just actually got something. There's a hotel that's opening in New York City that's going to have one of his restaurants in it. So
wow.
another famous chef, and he cooks everything like open fire. So that was cool.
Cool.
So
Very
yeah, so
cool.
it was just 3 wineries, one of them including lunch.
That's such a cool
But still like a
experience.
whole
Do you want
day,
to?
like
Yeah, that's
$125
super
for a driver
affordable.
for a full day.
Yeah,
like,
because then you both can enjoy the drinking and
Yeah.
everything. It's like the
Yeah.
way to go. Do you know the names of the 3? Did you want to mention the 3
Yeah,
ones you
sure.
went to? Yeah.
The first one that we went to was called Montgras, and that beautiful grounds. Like I was really impressed by all of these in terms of the wine tasting experience.
Yeah.
If you, in part, there are times where you feel like you're in California, like with the hills, but then you look past some of this closer hills and you see the Andes Mountains. And you're like, "Oh yeah, this is not California."
Yeah.
But it was lovely, Montgras. So basically the way that they do their tastings, which is how a lot of places do it, is you can choose what style of tasting do you want. Do you want kind
Like
of
a
your
reds, white
their,
mix.
or do you want like their basics? Do you want their
Oh,
Reserva?
I gotcha.
And
Oh,
so
gotcha.
they
Okay,
don't
sorry.
have a designation the way that they have in Italy and France, like a DOC or whatever.
Yeah.
It's called. It's just they self-determine what is their premier line, but most of them call the top wines their icons.
Okay.
The icon wines. And so we mostly had signed up to do tastings of the icons because why not taste the best stuff, right?
Nice.
But you can also do like a vertical tasting, which vertical is like the same,
Great, but
but or the
moves you up
same,
in quality.
but different vintages, different years.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. But those are super expensive. So I would say that the tastings are actually a little pricey. And we were doing,
Okay.
again, like the icons, but it was like $40 or $50 a person,
For 3 or 4?
at least 4. I think some
Okay,
of them were
4 or
6.
5. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So generous. That's good because
And-
sometimes you pay that in California for 3.
And generous pours. They were like glasses of wine.
Oh, wow. Not like a little 1 ounce, like where
No.
they literally are measuring it.
It was, you definitely could not have it all and still
Yeah.
function at the end of the day.
Would you ever think it would be interesting as a couple if one person got like the reserve and one person got the icon?
Yeah.
Or like compare them and
And we've also sometimes even split a
Especially
tasting,
fiction.
like if
Yeah.
you're like getting tired at the end of the day or something. But
especially with them being such a generous pour.
yeah. So I think there's a lot of ways to do it, to try different things. So that one was good. We bought, I think, like a Pinot Noir from there, actually.
Oh.
And then, I know, which was surprising.
Hmm.
And then we went to one called Maquis, And one of the things that I saw like throughout Chile, so the Chilean wine industry is about 30 or so years old. So it's still like newish. And I think this is not dissimilar to the way wines started in like California, but a lot of the wineries are operated by these families in Chile that own like multiple businesses. So it's like this is their little
Side
project,
hobby investment.
or,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
People that own like telecom and trucking and mining. And so it's kind of
Yeah.
part of that. But it gives for a very nice experience. You have these beautiful rooms and such. But the next one we went to was called Maki. And we ended up shipping a case back from them.
Wow.
Or we will once we figure all that out. But they have like not every place is set up to do this, but they have a connection with somebody that will ship for them and to certain states at least.
Was that where you had the dinner or the lunch?
No, it's not.
Okay.
And I just really love their wines. They have this one called Viola, I think because it's like violets. So that one I think was the Carmenere. And that was, yeah. So anyway, we shipped a bunch of that back. And then the last one that we went to was called Montes. It's Montes. And it was where we had lunch. And then their wine tour was basically like you go into a safari type truck, you go up through the vineyards to this hilltop, you're overlooking, you do one wine there, and then you come down and do the barrel room.
Yeah.
And the barrel room has like Gregorian chants 24 hours a day. It's like a whole thing.
It's very immersive.
And this winery apparently was known by the other people on our tour because this was a group tour. Most of the tastings we did were private. And they were very excited, and everything is like angels, like purple angel, like everything's angel something. So there's angels everywhere. And all the people were from Brazil, Dominican Republic, England, and I can't remember where the others were from, but they were all very excited. The wines were like $100 to $130 a bottle, and Glenn and I did not like them at all.
Oh.
So I would say skip that one. I mean, it was an interesting tour.
Yeah.
And it was also like the end of the day and I'd had enough and the guy just kept talking and I'm like, can we taste this already? Because he's like, okay, now swirl, now do this, now and I'm like, okay, give me permission to taste it. It was like, I felt, I'm not Catholic, but I felt, I don't know, like you're waiting to take the communion or something. I'm like, just tell me it's okay to go ahead and
That's
to taste it. But I didn't think it was that good. But anyway.
Interesting. Did Glenn
no,
didn't
he didn't like it
either.
either.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But that was where you had the lunch that was really good?
The lunch was good. It wasn't like as I don't
amazing
think it
as you
met
expected
his
with
expectations.
Yeah, because the chef.
Yeah, but I thought it was very good.
Was
Everything
the chef
delicious.
there or he
I don't
just
think so.
found it? Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
It's like when you go to all those places in Vegas or when we're going to the Bahamas and it's like the Café Boulud with Daniel Boulud or Marcus Samuelson.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, they're not there.
Well, they're only as good as their head chef and sous chef keep things in line. Okay, very cool. So does that wrap out that region? Do we want to move to the more western, the white region? I don't know what
the white region.
sea.
So that was Casablanca.
Casablanca. Oh, I should have known that one. It's like is that Spanish? No.
Casablanca is Morocco.
Morocco,
right?
yeah. But that famous movie, I can't remember where
I think that's Morocco. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think they went somewhere. Anyways, sorry.
We're solid, to be honest.
Yeah. So you guys drove to the next place? Okay.
Oh, I will say one more thing.
Yeah.
We did have lunch at the Clos Apalta residence. So that they have a winery. That's the hotel that I mentioned, the really nice luxury.
Oh, yeah.
So you can just have a lunch or dinner there. And two other observations I will say, like where we were staying at the Vibo Wine Lodge, I think we're the only Americans. Like definitely the only ones seem to be speaking any English. The other observation is that the Chilean wine region is really popular with Brazilians because Brazilians have gotten very into wine, but they don't produce hardly any wine there. So that it's very popular for Brazilians to go there for a vacation.
It's crazy to think that Chile and Argentina are so good with wine. And then Brazil.
Because it's further north. So
I
it's
guess it's
hotter.
And they've got the rainforests and stuff. So,
Right. What was I going to say? When we went to lunch at the Clos Apalta, amazing. First of all, we're on this beautiful terrace. Again, another beautiful day. We sit down and he brings out a menu with our name on it. And I was like, what?
Wow.
So it's like a set menu, but they personalized putting our name on it. So it was like such a nice experience. But I could tell everyone staying there was American, or at least the people that also came to lunch. I was thinking, wow, you stay here. Like for us, coming to lunch here was like an experience. Like I wouldn't want to come to lunch and have that every day if you're staying there. And they were all younger than us. And so I'm like, what do you all do? That's always what I want to know.
They're influencers.
So that was that was like another must visit.
Yeah.
Even if you're not staying there, I would have a meal there. So food and wine in that region, just excellent. But yeah, then we drove to Casablanca, which is why I needed to find the baño along the way.
Oh, that was okay.
Yeah.
That wasn't from the Santiago time.
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah. And so we stayed there at a place called La Casona, and it was a like historic hotel on the property of the vineyards. And it was so very different, totally different experience. It's basically like I said, more of a hacienda converted to a hotel. And so there's 10 rooms built around a courtyard. We stayed in the Malbec room. A more traditional decor. They had a living room with a fireplace and a pool table and games that you could hang out where they served like tea. This was another all-inclusive place, though.
Okay.
Or at least I don't know if that's
You
just the
booked
way
like
I
a full
booked it,
board,
but
yeah.
it just seemed easier because there's not a lot nearby to try to have other meals.
Yeah.
The only bad thing about that is the menus did not change every day.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
so
we were there for 3
frustrating.
nights. So we're like, okay, I guess we're having that again, or whatever it was that we were interested in. So our package actually came with a 5-course tasting menu and wine pairing, which we never did because we just were never in the mood for it. I was like, I'd had enough food, I'd had enough wine. Like I just, I was like getting to that point where you crave a hamburger or something.
Yeah.
So we never did that, but we did. So they did have some other excursions that you can do. So they have, first of all, we did like a biodynamic wine tasting and tour. So the whole winery is biodynamic, but they take you out to like their gardens and see like even the animals that they use. Like they're explaining how the geese help with this and the chickens help with this and different things, and saw their tasting room and then did a wine tasting there, which was very nice. And then the other thing that we did, you could do horseback riding, but since we had already done that, we decided not to do it again.
Yeah.
And you could do mountain biking or you can do hiking. Now, Glenn likes biking more. I like hiking more. So we decided to do a combo where we biked to the hike. And so we did that. But with a guide. So like they have guides. It's like some things are group and some things are personal. I guess it depends on who signs up for what. There's only 10 rooms, so there can only be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they do also some excursions nearby. But we decided, since we had a car, to just do some exploring on our own. So one afternoon we drove to the coast because I'm like, I want to see the Pacific Ocean on this part of the Pacific Ocean, you know? So there's a town called Negra that is where Pablo Neruda had a home. He's a famous poet and author from Chile.
Cool.
And his home is like super funky. There's one in Santiago also, but this is where he lived like towards the end of his life. And that was we did an audio tour.
Okay. Very eclectic.
Luckily in English. Although the guide, when he was asking, when we were picking up the audio tour, like we didn't even know there was an audio tour. We just thought we walked through, and he's speaking to us in Spanish, and he was like asking, "Do we speak Spanish?" And we're like, "Un poco." And then he was like, "Good." And then he just keeps going in Spanish, and I'm like,
"Oh no,
I'm lost."
Yeah.
I got it up to a point. And then we walked down to the beach, and then we drove down to this other town called Domingo, and that was we drove through this neighborhood. It was like going through La Jolla. It was beautiful houses, like gorgeous. And there's this gorgeous beach there. Yeah, we were trying to like Zillow, like none were for sale, but at least there were like 1 million, where I'm sure in California there would have been like 3 million.
Yeah.
But still beyond our price range.
Yep.
Yeah. But so that was the rest of our trip. And then we just drove to the airport and flew home.
Okay.
But it was.
And you guys felt safe driving around by yourselves all the time? Good.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. No issues with
The only other thing that people warned us about, that a lot of people do is the town of Valparaiso is like maybe an hour or two west of Santiago. And we had thought about going there as a day trip, and a number of people said, yeah, it's not so safe. Number one, it's built into a hill, so it's steep. So I'm like, I don't know if I feel like climbing a lot of hills anyway. But that there's also a lot of crime or petty crime there.
Yeah. It definitely sounds like a really cool wine and food experience. I think even you had mentioned earlier that maybe Chile is not totally different from a geographical region of what you're used to, but this definitely is a unique wine tasting opportunity and sounds like it was a good couples getaway. Some nice hotels too.
Yeah, I feel like we've done wine and food trips to Italy and Croatia and
Yeah.
France. I still haven't done Portugal with Glenn, but we got to do that with you.
Yeah.
So there's so many different regions, but I think that if you enjoy this kind of travel, like you should definitely
Yeah.
put Chile on the list. And it's probably going to be more affordable than some of those other areas, depending on where you stay.
Yeah.
And now you know who to go to plan your trip. So
Yeah, exactly. Tamara can help. She's got all the tips. I also know I could picture this being something with people as they get ready for bucket list trips because you can go out of Chile and Argentina. A lot of times people hop, skip down there and then keep going to be able to go on an Antarctica cruise.
yeah,
So,
honestly, I will say like a lot of the people that we met were in South America for months. They were like retired
yeah.
and were traveling through South America, or they were at least in Chile for a few weeks because they were like, oh, we're doing Santiago, Atacama. We were flying over to Easter Island. And
Yeah.
then we're doing Patagonia. It is far to go, but I will say it was like the direct flight from New York to Santiago, I think is like 10 hours.
Yeah.
So it's not like as bad as you think, maybe.
That's
I
like
don't
Europe
know.
for me. So,
Yeah. I did it with 2 6-hour flights.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
Cool.
it was a long day, but it's definitely, it's doable.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing. And to all of you listeners, thank you for tuning in. We love that you make this time for us. And hopefully you learned something new. And we'll see you again or talk with you again next week. Bye.
If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe and rate and review on your favorite podcast app, as that helps other people discover us. And if you want to see more, follow me, Tamara, at Your Time to Fly on Instagram and Facebook and all the others.
And you can follow me, Kim, at Stuff Suitcase on Instagram, Facebook, and of course my blog.